Hello, everyone, and welcome to another elite episode of the Get Authentic with Marques show. I'm your host, Marques Ogden. On today's episode, we are joined by Mr. Ryan LaPlante. And you know what? Let's bring him on down. How you doing today, Ryan?
It's the best day ever because I'm here with you, Marques.
I love that. That's a great answer, man. Ryan, first question, my good man. Please tell our global audience, what does the word authentic/authenticity mean to you?
I have been thinking a lot about this since I knew I was going to be coming here to talk to you today. And I realized for me, it is such a broad category that I think there were three key elements to authenticity that stood out to me. And one is, I think you have to have the desire to know who you really are. Not who you think you want to be, not who you're told you should be, but to do that kind of introspective work to figure out what you're passionate about, what really drives you. Then I think you need bravery to go out in the world and be that person, chase those dreams, represent kind of what you stand for. And last, you need resilience because you're going to bounce off of people who are not going to share those same passions or those same drives or those things, and to be able to maintain that authenticity instead of trying to change to meet what those people want. And when you do those, when you have those three drivers, when you chase those three things, that's when you'll make the most important connections. That's when career will start to click. That's when your personal relationships will take off. Like, authenticity, I think, is key to living a good, valuable life.
You know, Ryan, let's start at the beginning when it comes to something about identity, knowing who you are. How would you tell people that are listening that might be struggling with identifying and knowing who they are? How would you go about telling them, or some things they could do, right, Ryan, to start getting themselves on track to what I call identity leadership, which basically to me means knowing who you are and how you need to show up in the world to lead yourself. And if you're a leader in a position of that, help serve others that are in your charge.
That is a great question, and it is an ongoing battle. There is no one right answer, but I will tell you, as a comedian and a born people pleaser raised by very polite parents, a big challenge for me was just figuring out what I wanted, what I needed, as opposed to I would really blur the lines with people around me, where I would talk with them and they would have these clear wants and these clear needs. And I realized for myself, it was like, oh, what is the difference between a want and a need? And I was like, if I need it, I need water, because I will die if I don't have water. But almost anything else was considered a want for me, because if I need it and somebody else needs something else, what does it mean? And one of the big things was a paradigm shift for me to go, oh, it's actually a question of what do I need to be able to live as myself and not meet other people's expectations. And I started to examine the personal relationships around me. I started talking to trusted friends who seemed to know what their goals were. And maybe their goals didn't match societal goals of like wealth or, tremendous success or fame. It was like, oh, I have a friend who's a good dad, and he loves being a good dad, and his job is just a thing he does on the side. And like going to talk to him and realizing with his worldviews how that could challenge my own. And I also have gone through therapy when I've had struggles, and having a therapist is like having the right personal trainer or the right coach anywhere. Not everybody is the right therapist for you. And I think a lot of people go and they're like, I talked to one person and they were bad, and therapy's bad. And I'm like, no, you can have a bad doctor. There are bad people in any field. You got to find the right fit for you. And it's having those conversations, and I think challenging the core ideas. When I'm like, oh, I want to do this thing, but I can't because. And I'm like, let's sit down and actually look at that because. Let's talk it through. Is that something that was handed to me, or is it a core belief that I myself have? Because maybe I don't believe the thing everybody else believes. Maybe I don't believe the thing I was told by my parents. Maybe I do, and then it turns out to be a great lesson, and it will kind of doubly cement itself. But I think it's just spending that time being honest and talking about the scary things.
Well, that's a great response, which leads me to my next question. You talk about courage or being courageous, right? I tell people you have to have that attribute of courage and being courageous, because if you're not courageous or don't have courage, when something presents itself that's scary, or you're concerned or you're stressed or anxious about it, you won't pursue or you won't go after. And we both know you have to have courage and have the mindset to face your fears to really get what you want in life. So, Ryan, how would you help our global audience that are listening that might be struggling with courage? What can you teach and or tell them to help them become more courageous in their everyday life?
I think one of the big things that I've heard from so many great thought leaders, and I think you've tracked so many people, and so many people have made so many statements along these lines. Hard things are hard. No matter who's doing them, no matter where you start, no matter the advantages, it doesn't matter what privileges you have when you start playing the game. It is hard. Running your own business is hard. Getting promoted is hard. Being a good parent is hard. Being a good partner is hard. And it's putting that work in over and over and over again. I think it's so easy to look online and see influencers and see these other kind of filtered pieces of media that make it seem like, look at me, I ride my private jet, I don't sleep, I don't do this. And it's so much of that is fiction. Everybody who's out there really doing good work is working very, very, very hard. They are very tired, and a lot of it sucks. And that's kind of a universal truth. And I wish it was demystified for people's sake and be like, oh, okay, it is that hard for them too. It's that scary for them too. There are drawbacks to everything. And I think one of the biggest things that helped me, and it was an idea that I carried over to business and everywhere else, is focusing on output instead of outcome. I can't control if the podcast I'm making, I mean, I'm great, don't get me wrong, and I'm real funny, but I cannot control if my comedy podcast takes off or not. I cannot control how an individual episode does. I can't control any of that. And if my whole goal is to make the perfect episode, I'm going to go crazy, I'm going to freeze up, and I'm not going to be able to do it. But instead, I'm like, how can I control that I'm making an episode that I think is good? That I put all the effort into all the pieces, that I can go like, okay, I can make sure that I'm making a podcast that I love, that I think people will like, that I think is good based on my standards. And if I do that and it takes off, great. I'd love that. Don't get me wrong. That sounds fantastic. But if it doesn't, I don't have to feel bad about that because I did all the quality work that went into it with the amazing collaborators that I told that story with. And that's the value. And I say that as somebody who has a podcast that's done very well and who produced and directed a film that absolutely tanked. So, like, I've been on both sides of the equation. I still love that movie. It lost so much money for everyone involved, mostly me, but other people too. But at the same time, those friends I've carried forwards, all those things have happened, and those are the treasured memories because the work itself was valuable to me.
So, here's the thing, right? At the end of the day, I love conversations like this because it's all about helping people to see, right, Ryan, that life is full of ups and downs, hills and valleys, highs and lows. And that's my last question. I'm going to get into a little bit more about you and your story. You talk about resilience because, again, in life, when life knocks you down, not if, when, as long as you live long enough, life will knock you down. How do you help people with your comedy, with your content, with your messaging, learn how to be more resilient, Ryan, in their everyday life?
One of the things I have come to love about Dungeons and Dragons, because I make podcasts where people play role-playing games. So we all improvise stories, being heroes, villains, friends, everything else. But Deborah Ann Wool, who's an incredible actress, she talked about Dungeons and Dragons and other role-playing games and was like, it's people's chance to practice being the hero they want to be in their day-to-day life. Because you can go and play this game and find out a way to like tell off the boss, to realize that this is not a solution to a problem that you thought it was, to be able to make those steps forwards. And dice will get you. Because you're going to roll low. And again, like in real life, it happens. And I think for me, the improv and the storytelling and the comedy, it's a way to remind people that life is very hard, but also very funny, that you can find the joy anywhere. And my resilience, I think, is a combination of stubbornness, where I refuse to not be able to do the things I want to do, and finding it all very silly at the same time. Because if you cannot laugh at the darker things in life, it is very hard to get through them. And it does not mean if you are laughing that you are not acknowledging how challenging those things are or how dark those things are. And I mean, my career has been, it's like I'm a phoenix that keeps catching fire and has to rebuild itself like once every 4 years. I started out as a theater actor. That didn't work. was a comedian for a couple of years, no money in that. Switched to film and television writing. That fell apart. Switched to video game writing and worked in the corporate world. That didn't work. Now I'm in podcasting, and it's been great. I'm about year 4 of podcasting full time, so I'm innately nervous. I'm like, oh no, what's going to happen now? But I am feeling very confident about that. And I mean, challenges as you invest in authenticity, as you invest in the personal relationships of the people around you. The people that I make the podcast with now, I've known for 15 years. We've been working on the podcast for almost 10 years. And it also means when challenges fall outside of the work. I had a surgery. It was botched. I had a bunch of nerve pain. And for about a year and a half, I was barely able to work or do anything. It was very, very rough. That was all of 2024, half of 2025, most of 2025. But the podcast, we got the recordings in. The rest of the team kind of stepped up because they cared about me as a person. And I think they did additional recordings. They covered shows. They did all that. And it means now that I'm back and I am full-time on the podcast, and luckily, because it was very out of my control, I got out of the woods on the health front. I love those people. I love this business because it got me through that. And I am back and working as hard as I can because, A, output, not outcome. I can do this. I can push this. I can make this happen. And when I can do that, I can help repay those people in my life that have buoyed my own resilience because I am not alone. And none of us is alone. I think we all think we are. I think we all think that, A, everybody's obsessed with us all the time, and they're watching all our failures, and they know all of our secret flaws. And no one cares about us. And that it's up to us to do it alone. And we can't ask for help, and we can't do these things. You can. And I'll tell you, the best lesson I learned as a comedian, and I think everybody should learn this. I'm sure we've all seen comedians go up on stage, stand-up comedians, and tell a tremendously embarrassing story about themselves, where like they made all the wrong choices, and at the end, people come up to you and they're like, "You're so brave to tell that story." And the comedian trick is, no, I'm not. You all laughed, then you all applauded, and after every show, somebody comes up and tells me I'm brave. I tricked you. Sharing it wasn't brave. Your response is the brave thing. People stepping in, people being warm, and they will be. Share the story. People want to listen and people want to be there.
Ladies and gentlemen, the art of storytelling. We talk about this constantly. Ryan, I talk about how Aristotle, who was Alexander the Great's coach and mentor, became more well-known than Aristotle's, right? Aristotle became more well-known than his coach, Plato, and Plato's coach, Socrates, because Aristotle coached Alexander the Great. And one thing that really stood out to Alexander was how Aristotle used a lot of the Iliad by Homer to teach Alexander, because he knew that Alexander loved the stories of Achilles that was written in the Iliad by Homer, right? So this is where, as an individual that does podcasting, does keynote speaking, respect the fact you're in the podcast game, having great success, love that. It even more excites me to have you here because you talk about own the story, tell the story. The story will connect you with people faster than anything else. I tell people all the time, if you're trying to sell something to somebody and you're talking about data, wrap the data inside of a story. Because then what happens is the story lands better, the data sticks more in memory, and what happens is people can apply the data you were mentioning through remembering the story, because the story is what impacts people most. So Ryan, please tell us the name of your podcast.
Our biggest podcast is Dumb Dumbs and Dragons. It's a podcast where comedians and improvisers who've never played Dungeons and Dragons before are playing for the very first time. So we have a veteran dungeon master. He knows the game. He's played, I think, since he was like 3. He lives and breathes the game. And then I brought in a bunch of cynical comedians who had never played before, and we started our first campaign. And now we've run more than 400 episodes. We're 9 seasons in. It's been downloaded more than 20 million times. I describe it as Lord of the Rings if everyone involved was an idiot. It is a delightful time. And it's a great way to learn Dungeons & Dragons if you haven't played it, because we do not know what we're doing at the start. So it's for us and you.
So a couple things. How many people are involved with you on this awesome podcast?
So this podcast has a team of 4 at the center, and then we have rotating guests who come in and out on different arcs to join.
Good. So there's 4 of you all that work together pretty much consistently to make this podcast now have 20 million plus downloads and the whole 9 yards, correct?
Correct.
Awesome. So Ryan, please talk to our global audience about the importance of collaboration and how that's such a big thing. Because again, he mentioned earlier, ladies and gentlemen, that he unfortunately got sick, had some health challenges that were not planned, but his other 3 people stepped up and worked together to cover for Ryan to keep this awesome podcast going while he was recovering, and they were still able to be able to put money into his pocket, keep his lifestyle going while he couldn't even work. This is the art of true collaboration, true partnership. Ryan said it best a couple seconds ago. We're not alone in business and in life. We always have people to lean on. But Ryan, please express to our audience how important collaboration, teamwork has been in you all having such a successful, very well-respected podcast.
Collaboration and teamwork are the key to every successful business or venture I have ever been a part of. The podcast, definitely. In combination of behind the scenes, having people who will bounce their schedules around, who will work other jobs while they're doing this, who will be a part of this. And selecting those people is really hard. I was kind of the founder behind the idea of the show. And one of the things for me was, it's like, I need them to be nice people. I need them to be reliable. I need them to be talented. And I need like a no a-hole rule. Like, everybody's got to be a chill, decent human being, because I've worked on enough projects where you can be like, well, they're so talented. Like, they're kind of a bad person and obnoxious, but they're so talented. And like, the price you pay for that on your team always outweighs the value in the end. But instead, we had this incredible team, and everybody brings a different flavor to a story and their ability to tell the story and to find different ways for people to connect. We did a study like 2 years ago on our Patreon to find out everybody's favorite character, and it was spread across the show. There were people just listening for each single person, including one of our cast members, Laura, who's amazing, who was like, I'm not an improviser. I just started. Like, this is not a thing. And it was like, well, you are tied with everybody else to be someone's favorite character. So because we have this variety, because we have all of this there, that's the key, because it's not just me carrying it alone. And I think there's a temptation, especially for like high hustle individuals, and I definitely fall into that category of like, there's always more that can be done, but you're limited by yourself. To scale your business, regardless of if it's a podcast, if it's a data center, you're talking a tech company, anything like that, you need to be able to build a reliable team around you, and you need to be able to hand off things to those team members and know that A, they will do it, and B, they want to do it. And I think it's shared ownership. One of the big drivers for our podcast company, and this was from the beginning, was everybody knew their ownership shares. Everybody at the core of the show is a shareholder. The moment we went fully corporate and we incorporated, it was like, here are the shares. Here are the votes. Here is the process. Because everybody then is tied into success, even if it's hard. If I'm paying you a day rate and you're just kind of coming in and out as a contract employee, if things get hard, you're gone. And you should be. I've been that guy. Get out. It's crazy. But if you are contributing and you are appreciated and you are tied into the success of the company, you are on the team. And I think when you are on the team, you go above and beyond for the team, because it's in your interest and the team's interest. And if you can inspire, and I know, Marques, your whole thing is excellent leadership. And I love that, because I think not enough leaders study leadership. I think they study all the other things, but leadership and team building is key. If you are a good leader, you will find a great team, and then you will not be able to believe. It's exponential per good person you add to a team. It's not just 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 = 5. And then you add a third person, and it keeps stacking. I mean, does that feel right to you? Did I answer this
amazing. I mean, so take Ben, right? Ben is my producer. Ben has been with me since the show started about 4 years ago. It'll be 4 years in June, right? We started June 2022. Ben is a important team member of this podcast, right? I told Ben, and he knows it all the time, if he wasn't here, this podcast would not be. So this is why Ben gets paid for me monthly. Also, Ben gets a bonus off what I make from our hosting platform each month or each pay time, because I want Ben to know not only do I appreciate him, but he is now tied into our success. The more downloads we have, the more ad spend we make, the higher a bonus Ben gets every payout. I love calling Ben and say, hey, Ben, you got a payout coming on the way, because he knows that he is part of this, a huge part of this, getting to that point. And we have another partnership that we started with a guy named Nathan. We have it called Pog Ventures, and we're starting a coaching app for people who can't afford to hire me for the one-on-one, type stuff, that want access to us, and not just a very basic app, a very strategic, high-level paywalls, access, course content. It's going to take us about 3 to 6 months to build it. And we're working on it, but I have a partner in that, right, Ryan? Nathan and I are 50-50 partners in that, because Nathan is doing all of the work behind the scenes. I'm doing all of the content, the posting, the YouTube, the TikTok, the speaking, all this stuff, and we're coming together and we can now scale. And this is why our podcast is scaling, because Ben and I work so well together. And then with Paul Ventures, we're going to be ready to scale because Nathan and I come together. And then on the Ogden Venture side, I'm bringing in key players so that we can scale, because it's all about delegation, right? And here's my last question, Ryan. When it comes to leadership, because you talk a lot about your podcast and how awesome it is. I can't wait for you to tell people where they can listen, how they can connect with you, because it's a great interview with a great guy. You talk about leadership, and you're right, I study this a lot, right? There are 2 types of leaders: aspirational, inspirational. An aspirational leader casts the vision. They model discipline. They live by the standard. An inspirational leader brings the vision to life, turns the vision into reality. They create belief in others to get moving towards that targeted destination. Ryan, in your business, on your team, what are your thoughts about aspirational and inspirational leadership, and how both play a huge role, or huge roles, in you all's success with your podcast?
I mean, you're describing it all there. I think both things are so key, and I think it's very important to know when to be either kind of leader. There are days where you may need to do both, where you're like, I need to be like right delivering. I need to be the aspirational leader, but I also need to inspire at the same time to try to help that. But there are going to be situations where you're dealing with people who are having tough times, where you're dealing with people who are having their own challenges, especially on your team, to be able to support them. And it may turn out that if you come in as kind of the aspirational leader and are like, look, I can do it all, that can push people further down sometimes. It's not the intention ever, but it can, because they're like, well, you're perfect and I'm not. And it's like, that's not it. So those are the times where I will kind of take a step back on the aspiration, go like, okay, I'm going to be the inspiration for this person. I need to show up and be flawed and talk about the times I couldn't deliver too, but tell them that, like, when you push through that, this is what's possible. This is where you can go. These are the goals you can reach. And then there are some days where recording days are a great example for this. If we're sitting down to record, I've got a showrunner on Dum Dums and Dragons. It's Tom McGee. He's an incredible storyteller. He's driving the bus there. It's very interesting to produce all the way up to the recording day and be like, okay, I'm just a cast member now. And those are the days where I can't inspire necessarily. I'm not actually in charge those days. And those are the days where I'm like, it's all aspirational. I need to be perfectly on time. I need to be exactly ready. I need to do that to the nth degree to make sure that I can help everybody else, because that can be a subtle form of leadership in and of itself. If you are there and you are never late, people stop being late to meetings because they know that you're going to be there. And all of this just helps to shape the team. But I think the most important thing is, that interconnectedness with the team around you to realize the kind of leadership they need. And you're going to make mistakes. Every leader does. There are days where somebody needed inspiration and I focused on aspiration. There's been days where somebody needed aspiration and I focused on inspiration. There are also just days where I'm not at 100% and I can't deliver 100%. But I think the more you try to be present, the more you listen, the more you care. And I think one of the things that you mentioned, talking about your team, that I think people don't always consider, but I'm like, to have the security as a leader to be like, I'm not the best at the thing I brought this in. Like, this person got brought in because they're the best at building an app. I'm not an app builder. I want them to know more than me, which means I can't be the aspiration. I just have to be the inspiration. Like, you're an expert in your field. I'm not an expert. I'd love it to go here. This is kind of where we're aiming with. And to have the security to do that, because sometimes those people are going to push back and be like, you're wrong, we can't do that. And it's like, okay, but let me inspire you to find a way past this roadblock that has been created and be able to push those things forwards. So those two things, I think, yeah, it's almost, you got to be able to shift gears between them. You're in a high performance machine. You've got aspiration, you've got inspiration, and then you've got like the big red button that's like everything all at once. And you've got to race through that course and try to make the best choices you can to support the people around you.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a fantastic interview with Ryan LaPlante, talking about aspirational and inspirational leadership, talking about collaboration, talking about his awesome podcast that he has, talking about his ups and downs and how he's been through highs, lows. That's authenticity. That's vulnerability. That's being real. This was a great episode to help people understand that in life, we have to learn how to work through challenges. Ryan, where can our audience listen to your awesome podcast? And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how would they go about doing that?
Thank you. I did forget to pitch the socials. You're a very good man for throwing back to me for that. The podcast is Dum Dums and Dragons. You can find it anywhere podcasts can be found. It's all over the place. Also, the full episodes are available on YouTube. Our later seasons, we're filming in studio. It's beautiful, multiple camera setup. You can find us on socials anywhere at Dum Dum Dice, DUMBDICE. We post clips of our shows. We have a lot of fun. And you can DM me, our team, anybody through any of those channels, and we'll get back to you as fast as we can.
Ladies and gentlemen, please go and support Ryan, reach out to him, connect with him, and check out his awesome podcast and show him some love and support. And the great authentic tip of this great and inspiring interview: in life, please remember, it is so important to collaborate and partner with people that are aligned around the same vision you have. Don't try to go and do everything by yourself, because it's not designed in life that way. Life is not designed for us to do everything by ourselves. Life is designed for us to find people that align with us and can collaborate and can connect with us, where we all win on the journey of life. We call that a victory mindset mentality. When you have that in business and in life, greatness is on the horizon. Again, my name is Marques Ogden. I am the host of the Get Authentic with Marques show. Thanks for tuning in. Have a fantastic day.
Recording stopped.
Nice job, Ryan.
Thanks for having me. Super fun stuff to talk about.